What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. With the new AP items and the AP item reworks, we're also going to get a huge rework overhaul to the mage character style in general, more specifically the immobile mages. And Riot Meddler just recently confirmed that this rework overhaul is coming in patch 6.9, which isn't too far away, and it's looking like it's going to be the biggest group of reworks League of Legends has ever seen. With a total of what I believe is 16 champions receiving reworks or updates, it's hard to keep track of what exactly is going to happen. So here's a rundown and preview of everything that you can expect will go down with the mage champions on patch 6.9. Any champion I don't mention in this video is likely to go unchanged, barring any new information that gets released later on. Let's get started. Now these mage reworks can be separated into two types. We have the big reworks that are likely to result in significant changes to the champion, and smaller reworks which are like minor tweaks, quality of life updates, and maybe changes to just one or two abilities. Of the big reworks, there are 6, and they are going to happen to Brand, Cassiopeia, Malzahar, Vel'Koz, Vladimir, and Zyra. And of the smaller reworks, there are 10. Anivia, Annie, Fiddlesticks, Kennen, Swain, Syndra, Veigar, Victor, Xerath, and Ziggs. There are 3 goals that all of these reworks are attempting to accomplish. First, it's to make each champion distinct and give every character a unique reason to be picked in a game from one another. Next, it's to make them cohesive, to deliver on their core game theme and their gameplay fantasy. And lastly, it's to make them healthy and balanceable with meaningful strengths and meaningful weaknesses, and fun to play as and against at all skill levels. Remember that these reworks will be coming on the same patch as the AP item updates for sure, so it's going to completely change the meta. Let's go through a rundown of what you can expect will happen in each rework, starting with the big ones. First off, we have Brand. This rework is going to be balanced around him still being able to play in both support and in mid. He'll keep his area of effect damage focus and will still be able to burst squishies, but is likely to be a little bit less of a lane bully. They like how his passive works, so it's probably going to stay the same. His Q and W are probably not going to be changed that much at all, especially his W. His E is going to be changed a lot though to make it less harass focused, and this is the ability that Riot mostly has problems with, so you might be able to expect a completely new ability, or for his E to have the mechanics changed on it significantly. Meanwhile, his ultimate is going to become much less random, and as a result it will probably take a little bit of a nerf, but remain on the same power level overall. The next big rework is to Cassiopeia. This rework had a little bit of the leak on the PBE a couple weeks back, but the leak was an incomplete version of the rework. Her passive is going to be changed to this new ability that'll give her movement speed per level, but she won't be able to purchase boot items. Her Q is going to remain mostly the same, but might be given some situational use. Her W is going to focus a little bit more on zone control, and it's also going to have this mechanic called Grounded. When a champion is affected by the Grounded debuff, they cannot use movement abilities whatsoever, dashes, blinks, anything, you name it. But in addition to applying the Grounded debuff, this ability will probably be changed a lot from what it was on the PBE and on live. Her E is also going to change a bit, in that it will no longer have the cooldown reduced when using it on a poison target, while the overall cooldown is going to be changed to 1 second. Instead, it will now deal almost no base damage, but an extremely high increased damage to poison targets. And lastly, her ultimate is probably going to remain completely unchanged. The next rework is to Malzahar. He's going to be changed to be a lot less burst damage focused, with a little bit more focus on voidlings, and his AD playstyle kept intact. Riot also mentioned how he will not become more mechanically complex. They want to make his playstyle a lot less of a mage assassin and a lot more healthy and interactive. His auto attacks are going to become more responsive, and his voidlings will probably become more impactful and scale better, although they will remain not the focus of his playstyle. His Q is probably going to be unchanged, as Riot cited that it's a very healthy ability and probably actually the most fair silence in the game. His W, however, is likely to be changed completely, maybe a new ability or something, but you can probably expect a huge change to his W. His E on the other hand as well won't receive any changes, and as for his ultimate, it's going to be a lot less of like a guaranteed burst button, but it will keep the point and click crowd control aspect. Next up we have Vel'Koz. His all-in and burst damage are likely to stay, as well as his poking and kiting abilities. However, his wave clear is probably going to go down quite a lot. This is probably the smallest update that's a part of the bigger category. His passive is going to be revamped a little bit to make it more fluid, like a quality of life change you could expect, and his W is just going to have less wave clear, and the rest of his abilities are going to have little to no changes or just minor tweaks. Our 5th big rework is happening to Vladimir. Remember that with the items on this patch, Spell Vamp is being completely removed from the game. Vlad's going to keep his sustain aspect and his health costs on his abilities, but will have a lot more emphasis on stacking Tides of Blood. His Q is not going to be changed to a skill shot, but it's likely that it's going to have some mechanic that allows the opponent to contest the health cost. His W is going to be unchanged, while his E is going to get a huge overhaul, but it's not going to be a new ability. It's probably going to have very proportional health costs, and allow you to take that to the extreme where you can spend a crap ton of health to deal a crap ton of damage, and it's still going to be area of effect. His ultimate is probably not going to be changed, but depending on the tweaks and how this rework turns out, they did mention that it might require changes in the future patches. And the last big rework is happening to Zyra. She'll still be balanced around being able to be a support, but they do want to make her mid laning a lot more competitive. She's still dealing tons of damage and will have even more of an emphasis on counter initiating. Her passive is likely going to be a completely new ability and changed completely. Meanwhile, her Q is probably going to be given an additional effect to go along with just dealing damage, like maybe creating extra plants or something like that. Her entire kit will also revolve a lot more around her W now, and the W is going to give her more plants and more ways to play around the plants, and they'll also have some kind of late game health scaling to give them more survivability in team fights, while also having better AI to be consistent in focusing champions. Her E is probably going to remain unchanged, as is her ultimate as well. And now that we've covered all of the big reworks, let's get into the smaller ones, and we're pretty far into the video, so I'll try to make these as quick as possible. The first smaller update is to Anivia. She's going to have her usability improved a bit so she feels more fluid to play, and the design will focus on her strategic niche by increasing the power while also the health of her zone control possibilities. The next smaller update will be to Annie. This is probably the biggest update that classifies into the smaller category. She's definitely going to keep her Flash Tibbers kind of combo going on, while putting a little bit more power on the actual summoned portion of Tibbers as well when he's walking around. There will be more communication as well for her stun for anyone facing her, and her Molten Shield is going to become a lot more impactful. Next up, we have Fiddlesticks. His passive is going to become much more impactful and interactive, and he's going to get some general game health improvements, and they're going to focus a lot on making him more fluid and feel a bit better to play with. Next up, it's Kennen. His ultimate's going to be given more power in a situation where it's hitting multiple targets to increase the reward of setting up this prime AoE Kennen ult. This rework will be designed a lot on him having this identity of him being a skirmisher with a lot of crowd control potential. They like the way his stun works a lot, and they're going to focus his kit around it. Next up, we have Swain. Swain, along with Galio, was originally going to be given a massive rework to overhaul his entire kit on the level of something like the Taric rework, but those reworks are highly unlikely to come out in 2016. And for now, Swain's going to get some minor tweaks that are intended to give him a little bit more decision-making power and likely make him a bit more mechanically complex to play, while his drain tanking and damage over time elements will remain intact. Next up, we have Syndra. Syndra's going to get a little bit of a passive overhaul to get something that gives her a lot more meaningful power. Her passive will probably still keep the evolve aspect, but it's probably going to be a lot more impactful overall and especially affect playmaking potential. The next rework on the smaller scale is to Veigar. His passive is probably going to be tuned to feel a little bit better with his theme and overall game plan, and his ultimate is going to become a lot more transparent for opponents as for when and why they can die to Primordial Burst. Next, it's Victor. His rework and tweaks are going to provide his team unique ways to play around capitalizing on Victor's teamfight potential, and make his teamfighting more interactive with his teammates, rather than feeling like he kinda has to do everything by himself. Most of his theme will be kept intact, and he's probably going to be given a little bit less damage, but get an increase in utility. Next up, it's Xerath. His core playstyle will remain mostly the same, and his abilities are going to become a little bit more fair to play against while also keeping the long range power of them. And his ultimate's also going to become a lot more fluid to go in line with the rest of his kit. And last but not least, we have Ziggs. His rework is focusing on giving him more of a strategic niche so that there's a specific situation where you might want him for your team comp over other champions. His stalling ability is also going to become a lot less powerful, especially when he's a little bit fed, so that he doesn't have this extreme power to make the game last a lot longer. And that wraps up all of the reworks. I'm really looking forward to this update because League of Legends is going to change a ton once this goes live, and it's looking like it's going to be for the better. Which MAGE rework are you excited the most for? Leave a comment, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.